Hello, I'm Stir Fried German. Thanks for stopping by. I'm really surprised this monitor is not getting more reviews on YouTube than it currently is, because for an ultra-wide at 34 inches with 100 Hz, with Freesync, with a VA panel that displays 99.5% of the sRGB color gamut, and at the price this display is currently listed at, I think it's a really good deal. And I don't understand why it doesn't get more attention. Now the display you're seeing here is the Viewsonic VX3479-2KPC, but it actually has a twin brother which is almost identical, which is the Acer, hang on I have to read that, ED347CKR. They have exactly the same panel, they have the same panel housing, like the frame around the screen. They have the same backside. There are only two notable differences between the Viewsonic and the Acer, which is the stand. On the Viewsonic, you only get a vertical tilt, where on the Acer, you get height adjustment, swivel, and tilt. And the second difference is the on-screen display, which is different for each manufacturer. But otherwise, they have the same performance and the same features. There seems to be a distribution agreement between Acer and Viewsonic, because basically in the Western Hemisphere, this display is sold under the Acer brand, and in the Eastern Hemisphere, basically Asia and Australia, this display is sold under the Viewsonic brand. While you don't get the option of height adjustment on the Viewsonic, I did read a report of a Acer buyer complaining that the height adjustment didn't go low enough on the Acer. But anyhow, this display is capable of VESA mounting, so there is no problem if you want to change the stand at a later stage. Now here in China, this Viewsonic actually doesn't sell that well. The same panel seems to be offered by a local company called HKC, and which is about 20% cheaper. But again, it's the same panel, just the HKC one has different warranty terms, I think. I've only had good experiences with Viewsonic displays, so I chose to go with Viewsonic and spend a little bit more. Now you might be wondering about the curve before you buy, if you've never had a curved display before. I certainly was, and to be honest, if I had seen the screen in the shop, I probably wouldn't have bought it because I found the curve initially to be completely uncomfortable. The good news, however, is that you get used to that, and now I find the screen awesome. It basically took 1 or 2 days of getting used to it, and now I absolutely love it and can only recommend that you go the curved way. Before this display, I had a 32-inch 16:10 display, which was an IPS. We'll get to that in a second, to the display technologies. And the increased height compared to this 34-inch ultra-wide made me move my head a lot to see up and down, basically. And that proved to be quite tiring. Also, at the edges of the screen, the contrast was falling off, so the curve here in this case helps a lot, and this doesn't happen. The Viewsonic comes in a huge box. I mean, it's so huge, they're really not kidding. When you see the screen, it's big, alright, but the box is humongous. I ordered it online, but picked it up from a shop with a taxi here, and it almost didn't fit into the car, basically. So they're really not kidding. It seems that the curved displays are more fragile than flat panels, and there's actually some user reports of people breaking their panel. So maybe this justifies the increased packing effort produced by Viewsonic. Also, if you do buy this display and ever intend to move it, I suggest you keep the box for later transportation, just to keep it safe. So in the box, besides the screen and the base, you will find 2 cables. A first one that connects to the USB hub that's integrated in the back of the display, and the second one, which is a DisplayPort cable. Now the screen is able to perform FreeSync on both HDMI and DisplayPort, so whichever mode you're using has no importance whatsoever. The cables are only about 1 meter long, and that was a bit disappointing, reminding us that we're actually looking at a budget monitor and not a premium priced display. On the back we see the inputs: DisplayPort, HDMI, DVI, USB 3. The USB 3 is a hub with 4 ports available and 1 down. And of course there's a power connector for the external power brick, which also I don't like, but I guess that's life. There are also 2 speakers present in the back. The speakers are nothing to write home about from a sound quality perspective, but they can come in handy on occasion, so it's a nice touch to have added these, even though this is a budget panel. Now I added a LED lighting strip to the back of the display. This time I chose a Bluetooth version. I already had one installed on my old display and really enjoyed it, although it was controlled with a remote, the old one. I find the Bluetooth version more practical. You can't lose the remote, basically, it's always on your phone, and the QR code to download the app for your phone is on the Bluetooth dongle. And with the app, you have a much wider control or choice of colors available. I always use these LEDs for coloring the background of my YouTube videos, but I also use it on a day-to-day basis because I find that it adds a decorative touch and evens out the contrast between the background and the screen a little bit. These LED strips are cheap as chips and they take about 5 minutes to install. They're basically stuck onto the panel and they are removable. It's some kind of a 3M tape that doesn't leave any trace. There's a link in the description. The on-screen display menu is controlled with a joystick knob, which is under the power LED. The power LED is red when the screen is off and blue when the screen is on, but you can actually disable the power LED when the screen is on, so you're not bothered by a blue light staring at you. Do keep in mind that the Acer menus are different from the Viewsonic ones, but basically the functionalities are more or less the same. The Viewsonic offers input select, several viewing modes, manual calibration, Freesync on and off, and a selection of languages. Mine actually came in Chinese, but hey, I live in China, so that's kind of normal, right? There's a programmable shortcut function where you can basically set a viewing mode to your liking. Unfortunately, you can't include switching on or off FreeSync with that mode. We will talk more about FreeSync later. The monitor housing is almost bezel-less on the sides and on the top. There is, however, a black area on the panel, framing the usable display area. I really like how it integrates with my speakers and makes a clean setup on my desk. Now maybe I should tell you a little bit about display technologies. There are basically 3 different types of technologies that are used in most panels today. The first one being TN. TN is the fastest display technology, and that's what you will find on most of the pro gamer screens, with response times that can go down to 1 millisecond basically. However, they have pretty bad viewing angles generally, and are not so good on contrast and on color space reproduction. The second very common technology, which you also find in a lot of smartphones, is IPS. IPS tends to have the best color reproduction capabilities, if you're getting a high-end IPS panel, that is. However, the contrast is not perfect, and basically blacks will look like dark grays on these screens. Viewing angles are good on IPS, but you do need a high-end IPS panel again to get very good color reproduction. The basic consumer level ones are not that efficient. Finally, we have VA, which is the technology used by this panel. It sits somewhere in the middle between TN and IPS. It has the highest contrast ratio, and it's also used in some TVs, although most TVs are IPS actually. So your blacks are really black or almost black anyway. And it doesn't have the IPS glow, if you know what I mean. IPS tends to have a glow around the pixel, and personally I actually prefer VA, even though probably on a high-end IPS you might get even better colors. But this one displays 99.5% sRGB color gamut, which is quite astounding. If you're coming from a consumer panel, that is. I basically rediscovered everything. I was really amazed by movies, for instance. And if you're looking at YouTube, you can see for every single creator if they know how to color grade or not, and whether their exposure is correct or not. That's really amazing. I couldn't see nearly as much with my old IPS display. So yeah, so I prefer VA over IPS, but that's my personal taste. I already had a VA before in France, and actually my laptop is VA as well. So maybe I'm a little bit of a VA fanboy actually. The Viewsonic is advertised as HDR capable, and as I said, it displays a color gamut of 99.5% sRGB. But honestly, I don't quite get the HDR capability because we're talking about an 8-bit panel, and as far as I understand, you need 10-bit to display HDR. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, I couldn't test out HDR. I don't have any HDR media on my setup here. The viewing angles are very good horizontally. There is a slight backlight bleed if you really look for it, basically in the 4 corners. I think I have a picture I can pull up to show you. But the backlight bleed is not really noticeable in real life usage. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the Workspace, which is absolutely incredible. Now, of course, when you're using desktop apps, you're browsing the internet, you can pull up 2 screens very simply with the keyboard shortcuts in Windows. It's the Windows key and the arrows to send apps to the left or the right, so you can split the screen in 2. But the screen is really wide enough to have 3 windows open. Unfortunately, I don't know how to enable that in Windows automatically. And I'm a little bit too lazy to drag the windows to size manually, so I don't actually use it like that. But the screen is certainly wide enough for that kind of usage. If you're recording music and you use a DAW, the workspace you get with this format is just incredible. And the same goes for video editing. On this screen, it's simply a dream. Your timeline is so much longer and so much easier to control and to edit. And of course, the color reproduction is incredible. When you're color grading, you get so much more information from the screen compared to a basic IPS panel, which I had before, that actually initially I was a little bit lost and felt like I didn't know what I was doing anymore. but you do get a lot more information. And when you're watching YouTube and see the different creators, you will know immediately with the screen who nailed their color grading and who didn't. Now, one thing I didn't even think about when I bought the screen, because I don't use it for that so much, is when you're watching movies, it's actually the CinemaScope format, the 21:9, with the ultra-wide. So your screen basically acts like a 40-inch TV or even bigger, because the movies are actually fully full screen, and that's completely incredible. And if you combine that with the 99.5% sRGB color representation, the movies are beautiful. It's just an experience. I was really surprised. I didn't expect that at all, because it was not part of my concerns when I bought this display. But the result's incredible. Now, I did find a little bit of a color shift on the bottom of the screen. It happens in certain darker grays, medium dark grays, on the lower, like half centimeter maybe. It only happens there. It's only if you're pixel peeping, but it does happen. So the display is not doing a perfect job, but it's doing a really good job. I mean, movies on this are just really impressive. Now, the vertical height and the pixel pitch I find very comfortable for desktop working. So I absolutely recommend it also for an office situation. It's really a good format. I have the desktop or Windows set to 100 Hz, and I do find that my eyes are a little bit less tired than on a 60 Hz screen. But that could also be because of the higher contrast. I'm not sure. As far as brightness is concerned, there's absolutely no problem with this screen. It's really bright. It's actually a little bit too bright if you set it to the max. I tend to run it around 80%, where my old panel, the IPS, which was a Viewsonic as well, was constantly running at 100%, although it was only rated 50 CD per square meter less, so it was not a big difference. But this panel is really bright, even though it's only rated 300 CD per square meter. Okay, finally a quick word on gaming. I actually downloaded the latest update for Fortnite for this review. So please thank me for that. It was 11 gigabytes, and I'm doing that from China. I'm just kidding, it came in at 20 megabytes per second, even though Fortnite is officially blocked here. Here's some game footage, and you might ask, like, is this a gaming monitor, or will this display make you a better gamer? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but in the last game I played, I actually got 7 kills, which never happened to me before. I'm much more comfortable aiming with this display. And I thought maybe this was just a coincidence, but actually I managed to get 7 kills on 2 successive games, so it's not a coincidence. The colors are completely incredible during the game, and it is very clear. I don't notice any motion blur or any major motion blur anyway. There's no smearing or no noticeable smearing. As I said, like, I'm aiming a lot better than before. So this monitor is certainly able for at least casual gaming. Now, I did enable FreeSync, and the FreeSync range on this monitor is 48 to 100 Hz. My graphics card is a little bit slow for that, so I'm always somewhere in the middle, I guess. I have a 1060, 3 GB. I turned down the detail to see what it would do at higher frame rate. The game feels very fluid on this display. I didn't notice any flickering, but maybe I just didn't notice. It seems that happens when you're using adaptive sync or FreeSync. However, when you go back to desktop mode, once you're finished gaming, you will get some occasional flickering, so I actually always go into the menu and turn it off. And that's a bit of a pain, because the shortcut function that Viewsonic built into this display does not allow you to include FreeSync on or off, unfortunately. But it does seem to work quite well. And with the very clear display, like, as I said, like, I'm getting more kills, and the game is super beautiful, really impressive. So that brings us to the response times, which are rated 4 milliseconds for the Acer or 5 for Viewsonic. So you're probably looking at something somewhere in the middle there. So if you're a really serious gamer, you probably won't go with this VA panel. But if you're a casual gamer, or even a little bit better gamer, but not at the pro level, maybe from a competitive point of view, I think you'll be happy with this display. It's actually quite nice. And of course, if you want to carry me in Fortnite, please add me. I always need teammates and people who can carry me to win. My handle or my nickname in Fortnite is Toasted Nipple, so please feel free to add me. I'll accept anyone and everyone. Thank you. Thanks for your help. So prices for this display vary, but they go very low on promotion. So I suggest, if you're interested in this display, that you wait for a promotion. They basically knock off up to 30% of the suggested retail price. And at that price, the screen has no competition. So I don't understand how there are not more reviews on YouTube about this screen. So what do you think? Tell me in the comments. Maybe I missed some model that didn't make my comparison list before I bought this one. But I really recommend it. I love it. I'm really happy I have it. And I think I will keep that one for a while. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like, please subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.